Buon pomeriggio a tutti. Il mio prossimo ospite, Myrtha da Agricola Foradori.
Buongiorno.
Sì, ma purtroppo non possiamo parlare italiano, dovremmo passare all'inglese.
Good afternoon.
Okay, Myrtha. So we have 5 interesting questions. Let's start from the first one. What are you looking for in wine? The key question for the beginning.
Well, in wine, we look for the grapes and the place we are. So we don't want you to find, let's say, only the expression of the man, of your work in the glass, but especially the place. And the people are not secondary, of course, because without people, we don't make wine. But the vineyards are a product of human beings. So otherwise, they would climb on a tree and not be trellised and harvested and pruned and all this stuff. So what I look into wine is really the true expression of that piece of land with minimal intervention in the cellar, so let the grapes speak, and especially make sure that whoever then drinks the wine has a visual idea of where this bottle comes from. So wine is much more than just the fermentation, it's the full package.
Perfect. I think that the next question is connected with the first one. So, in your opinion, what is the most important thing that the wine gave you, or maybe still gave you all the time?
Well, what I think is the connection of the cultural context and the taste, because our brain works through our taste buds. So we know everybody has had maybe in their childhood, I don't know, the peach of your grandmother's garden, and your peach is different than my peach in my mind. And with the unique expression and the individual taste that the wine brings to you, but it's connected with the people that are in it, so around it and in it in terms of who makes the wine. So what I feel is the most loving part of the wine and the whole business around it, it's really the cultural asset that you absorb with the wine. So if I go to the Georgian colleagues, it's completely different than the Spanish, and it's geographically, culturally embedded with the product.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing, because Georgian, Spanish, you always make the wine in the same style, and now, as a surprise, now you are, the new trends of the winemaking is one of them is Foradori as a style of the natural wines, low intervention wine. So many times we're speaking, or wine lovers speaking about the cool things in the natural wines that they love, but probably there are also some cool things in winemaking or in the natural wine that, for example, you don't like, or maybe even you hate it. So it's the worst thing in the cool things in the winemaking or in this wine in the natural wine world?
Lack of precision.
Okay.
So I find that in any product, it goes from a bread, a wine. It can be even just anything that you create has a added value if you work deeply, precisely to what you're imagining to create. So when we take a product and transform it, or ferment it, like in wine, the precision comes from observing the process of fermentation and giving it a good direction. But what I miss sometimes is the precision in really showcasing me the final product. So I mean, how you work in the cellar, it can be very spontaneous in all its, let's say, meaning. So not only the fermentation is spontaneous, but it's really letting the product go means you're not giving it a direction. And I find it difficult sometimes in certain wines that are just unclear. And that's fine and fun for certain situations, but then I miss the meaning of that product, or it's not giving a clear picture of that context I was talking before. So having your culture, your idea of interpretation in the glass. And sometimes the precision can be too much, of course. Then the wines maybe get boring, but being precise does not mean standardize. It's just precisely showing you what happened in that vineyard and what happened in the fermentation, and to knowing why I have a specific taste in the glass. And it's connected with the season, with the vintage that had maybe problems or specific weather patterns. So it's a long-term research. So the precision comes with patience. And it's something that you acquire on a long term, but you really have to want it. So if you like to, like, I'm not always precise. I'm not in the cellar, luckily, but I have a precision level in certain things. And my precision level is directed by the goal I have. And my brother Emilio, who makes all the wines now since 10 years, is an extremely precise person. And he really wants you to also see and understand why the wine has a specific characteristic. But when there is an overall lack of precision, I find that the individual, the person that is behind this product, is also not sticking to my mind. It's something that your brain, our eyes like patterns. You know, when you're in the supermarket and there is a color, a specific size, order, your brain recognizes it and remembers it. If it's all mixed up, you're going to have a hard time. And so sometimes it's nice to have that, mixing things, but the precision sticks to your brain. And if there's a lack of precision in the wine, you will not remember it on a long term.
Okay, and maybe there is some word in winemaking that you hate. For example, I spoke with Misha from Slobodne Winiarstwo, and he said me that the word that he really hates is minerality. Maybe there is some word that you really hate in the winemaking.
Yes, if it can be a word that comes maybe from the people that come taste, it's when they tell me, describe me the wine. So I describe you how the wine is made, where it's come from, how we do it, but as I told you before, if I tell you it tastes like a peach, but my idea of peach is different than yours, so what I really hate is this phrase of, can you describe me your wine? And I'm like, this is something also not precise. I'm like having a hard time.
Same story when we're making some masterclass with the wines, and the public, they asking, okay, and tell us about the aromas.
Exactly. That's something that my answer then is, you tell me. I always then turn the question to the person that's asking me, because I don't want to invade with my vocabulary your imagination. And the trigger that you can have by tasting a lot of different things is to train your palate. And it's giving a description is a good guideline, of course. But if you have it in the glass and you can taste it in that moment, why do I have to describe it to you? I can describe it in context, and that's what's most interesting, to give you an idea where it's from. And this is my interpretation of that cultural, agricultural context. So this is something that really bothers me sometimes. It's important, it's an important skill, you know. Trained sommeliers, and same as with coffee roasters, they have it's amazing. I really honor people that have a clear way to describe it. But me as a producer describing it to you, it's always going to be the wrong direction, I think.
So Myrtha, we're living now in a quite difficult world, and with the quite difficult weather. I think today is one of this example. So what do you think? What future does wine have? Also in this aspect of the weather, of climate change, global warming. So you are on the north, but for example, the South Italy, they thinking that it's too hot for making wines in some parts of Italy. So what do you think generally of the future of wine in Europe?
So this is the most frequent questions we get from visitors at the wine estate, because everybody starts to notice this. And what's very clear to us is to keep the eyes and the prevention in winemaking very alive. So we observe that there is maybe more heat stress, or there is more, let's say, instability of the weather patterns. So we need to think about who is absorbing the weather. So the plants, the vines, need support in reacting, so the resiliency around these patterns. And for sure, unfortunately, it will happen. We know the desertification of the southern part of Italy. You know, we are getting warmer and warmer temperatures. The south has more and more problems with water supply, but this does force us to rethink where are we planting what. So if I see my neighbor up in the mountain, I mean, I live on a mountain, the estate is in the valley floor. If I see my neighbor planting pewees like Solaris at 800 meter, 1,000 meter, this is, to me, not the right solution. It's escaping the actual problem that certain vineyards are placed in places that have a constantly changing climate, and it will never adapt. So we are working with autochthonous variety that are adapted. They need to adapt to different climate. Of course, it means maybe we need to harvest earlier. We have to rethink the winemaking in the cellar. But how do I help the plant to adapt faster? And for us, since we work with biodynamics since 20 years, we see the reaction is much faster now, that the plants are constantly triggered to react faster. So to think about climate change and think about regions that won't be able to produce wine anymore because of too harsh conditions. Unfortunately, it's a natural development that can only be stopped by trying to help the plants, and if it's not possible, those plants need to be gone, even if it's, you know, cultural heritage of many, many years. But what we're experiencing now as a change of climate is the accumulation of mistakes we had down in the 80s. So it's not that the emissions from yesterday are today giving us the reaction. It's been too long that we have been pushing, but the same moment is for us. What are we doing today? We will experience in 2050 the reaction of the world. So who knows? Maybe Ice Age is coming back.
We will see. Last question. I already know the answer, which is a very interesting answer. So tell us, if it wasn't it for wine, what would it be?
So if it wasn't it for wine, I would love to be a museum tour guide for kids age under 10, because they are the most fun, and to teach children to experience, to learn, to open their eyes, to be more reactive, to be much more interactive. It's one of the most important things nowadays, that we are in a digital world, and there's so many good tools, like digital tools, to actually keep a brain working and imagining, because the imagination that kids bring to the world is the most important for us adults to don't forget to dream and imagine without patterns.
Perfect. Thank you very much. Myrtha from Agricola Foradori. Grazie mille.